TeamWater just raised $41.5 million in 30 days, and there's a lot to say about how this project was secretly planned for over a year, how it was turned down by NGOs despite MrBeast's influence, how it succeeds where governments have failed for too long, and where it does better than everything I've seen and done in years. As a water engineer who's chronicled decades of government failures at solving the water crisis, I quote 4 words at exactly 1 minute 13 seconds in Jimmy's video that explain why TeamWater is built different. So today I want to share 5 things TeamWater got right, 3 things I would have done differently, but also 4 game changers nobody's talking about. But first, if you were busy chilling this summer, here's what you missed. On the 1st of August, MrBeast and Mark Rober officially teamed up for the 3rd time after Team Seas and Team Trees to kick off TeamWater along 3,000 creators worldwide. Not me, they didn't let me in. With the goal to raise $40 million in 1 month and a simple slogan, $1 donated would mean that 1 person would get 1 year of clean water, and this is no small feat when over 2 billion people worldwide still don't have access to it, including 2 million in the US, and I highlight this because TeamWater addressed it, more to that later, and because we too often take water for granted or believe it's a sub-Saharan African thing to lack access when no, that's a global challenge. By the end of day 1, they had already raised $5 million, and by day 12, so just a day after my birthday, it can't be a coincidence, they had already surpassed $15 million when Ken Griffin pledged 2.25 more millions live on TV.
Ken Griffin, you got a lot of money.
And
Today's show, I wanted to film this video real quick and say thank you for having me on. Last week we called out Ken Griffin, and he ended up donating over $2 million to TeamWater. He's on top of the leaderboard.
That same week, MrBeast went live with Aiden Ross and XQC in a 17-hour stream that broke the world record for the most money raised, with the 3 streamers regularly bumping up their target to raise over $12 million on that single event alone. As always, things calmed down a bit until the last couple of days, where a new influx of content shared from around the globe enabled to cross the finish line, not only reaching $40 million by the end of August, but also surpassing that figure to reach $41.5 million, which is the figure at the time I record this. But before I go into the details, I need to tell you where I'm speaking from. I'm a water engineer and a dad of 3. The video I made 2 years ago as a reaction to MrBeast digging 100 wells is still to this day the most commented ever on this channel, and despite a quite okay like to dislike ratio on the video, the comments have been harsh enough that I never wanted to venture into these waters again, at least without that disclaimer. I'm a water professional, I've been involved firsthand in access to water projects, I've also covered and chronicled the world's leaders' pathetic attempts at closing the water gap and their failure, and I've met and interviewed some of the most inspiring individuals and NGOs that are truly moving the needle, and I may sit down with someone from TeamWater by the time this video airs. I also mentioned the dad of 3 element because we crave Feastables in this house, and my daughter builds with Crunch Labs every month, so I'm certainly not a hater. I would believe I'm pretty objective here. I wanted that to be clear, now that it is. Let's start with the 5 things TeamWater got right. First, working with local leaders, not for them. So first, there's one very interesting contrast between Jimmy's TeamWater video and the 100 wells and 30 wells videos he did in the past. Listen to what he says here at 1 minute 13.
With local leaders, we made sure that clean water is no longer a concern here.
That sounds like nothing, but it's a very important dimension for a successful water access project. If you do it for the people, it's doomed from the get-go. You have to do it with the people. It still doesn't guarantee it will work long-term, but it's a must to stand a chance. Second, building for 20-year water security. What I just said is why this next sequence at 1:35 is crucial as well.
Jimmy, is it gonna last forever? As long as this well is maintained, which is obviously what TeamWater is gonna do, this well can practically last forever.
Okay, that's a bold claim, but there's a rationale that comes back at 5:09 in this sequence with the Stokes twins.
Once this is done being built, how long is the tank supposed to service the community for?
easily for at least 15 to 20 years.
We've teamed with WaterAid, our lead global partner, to help provide clean drinking water. They also support local governments that handle repair and make sure everything keeps working.
Not only we're providing the project, but we're maintaining it for decades to come.
I'll go into the details of the partnership with WaterAid in a minute, but it's also the reason why TeamWater always has this dichotomy between what Tarek says here.
On average, every dollar donated is going to provide clean water for an entire year to someone in need.
Make sure to donate.
Which would make you think that $40 million equals 40 million people with access to water, instead of which it's only, with big quotation marks, 2 million people. The difference is in the word average, because the target is to build long-term water security by providing access for 20 years, so 40 million over 20 years makes 2 million people, and both figures are right. But even before we go into the actual partnership, the simple fact that TeamWater goes for the much better yet less shiny target of providing 20-year water security speaks wonders for the seriousness of their approach, at least in my book. And that's where we come to number 3, the WaterEd partnership and due diligence. Because what's at play here is that while the 30 and 100 wells projects were Beast philanthropy projects, this time around Jimmy Donaldson teamed up with WaterEd. WaterEd has existed for over 4 decades, as it was created in 1981 to deliver clean water, decent toilets and good hygiene. See, we didn't come up overnight with the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Today, they operate under a 2032 strategy that aims to see 400 million more people get water services through deploying $15 billion more a year. And even if WaterEd directly operates in 20+ countries, they also serve as a project coordinator and fund manager, meaning that they are built to put money to its best use by building the right teams for the right local context. I hope I'm allowed to share a little behind-the-scenes secret. The trademark TeamWater was filed 1 year ago. That is public knowledge. But what's less known is that roughly around that time, Jimmy's team first approached WaterEd to establish a partnership and make it happen. And WaterEd's first answer was no, because it's a setup and a responsibility to channel philanthropy money to its best use. So Jimmy's team had to come back several times and undergo the NGO's process to convince them to hop on board. So if I wanted to make more views and downloads with this video, it would be easy for me to say TeamWater is a scam. It doesn't have to be true, you just have to claim it. But the simple fact that Mr. Beast and Mark Rober convinced WaterEd to work with them means that they successfully went through their due diligence process. And honestly, that is a very strong trust signal. Number 4, and that one is pretty different, there was a live stream with a trick that solved philanthropy's problem. Because zooming out from water for a minute, I also want to acknowledge TeamWater's clever approach to fundraising, because philanthropy is tricky. Most people give to philanthropy from the goodness of their heart, but even in that case, and pretty always subconsciously, they want to see the results. They want to see that they did good. This shiny object syndrome that will come back in a minute. This is why charity fundraisers always promise you to get a proof that they've done right with your money. But the counterintuitive thing is that sometimes the best way to spend your money is to spend it on something invisible. Administration work, project management, training, sometimes even lobbying, and many more hidden tasks that don't show as a quantitative and visible outcome for your pledge. Yet, if donors want to see, the temptation is big to do something shiny that may be a quick fix, but won't last. And that is where I disagree with many critics of Mr. Beast, XQC and Aiden Ross's livestream, because what I've read and seen a lot is, look, all these rich people that battle to be on the top of the screen to look good, that's pathetic. And no, actually, that's genius. These people, including Ed Craven, the co-founder of Kick, the platform where the stream was held, who made a 7-figure donation live, already got their visible gratification. And I'm not even implying that's what they were directly looking for. I'm really nobody to judge, but subconsciously, that box is ticked. They have gotten something visible and tangible for their pledge. They don't need to see a well and a pipe anymore, and TeamWater's partners are now free to make each dollar flow to its best use. The reciprocity principle has been deactivated. Well done, TeamWater. And number 5, still along those lines of raising more money, getting governments to match funds. Because I believe TeamWater did some clever finger pointing. If it takes a charity event to bring safe drinking water in West Virginia, it's a bit of a shame for local authorities. What do they do year long, right? And I'm pointing at West Virginia because that's one of the places where local authorities stepped in and offered to match funds for TeamWater's projects in their area, meaning that every dollar now spent over there equals to 2. And that's a clever shortcut to a bigger bang for each buck. Now, still, there are 3 things I would have done differently. Because now that I've said that, there are shortcuts and inconsistencies in Jimmy's video. Not much, but some that could have been easily prevented still. First, and that's a common mistake, the focus on visible dirt.
Look at all that dirt. I mean, look at those chunks of just dirt in this water.
But really, there are little particles of dirt.
The water here is dirty.
In the video, he insists a lot on the dirt you see in the water, but dirt is not really an issue actually. It's rather the opposite. Water with dirt is something you can spot instantly, so you'll do something about it because everybody knows dirt is not a good thing. So you'll put a towel filter like we see in the video later on, or a ceramic pot filter, or any kind of rustic filter, and you'll get rid of the dirt and a bit of the rest. So dirt is an indicator that nudges people to the right behavior. Not a big deal, but something I wanted to point out. Second, and maybe more important, it seems to me like they were using outdated statistics. Because where I'm a bit surprised, it's when the video says this.
But unfortunately, nearly 1 in 10 people don't have access to clean water.
I believe that's an understatement. By the latest UN figures, 74% of people have access to safely managed drinking water, which means 26% don't, which rather rounds up to 3 out of 10 people in the world that don't have access to clean water. I guess what Jimmy refers to here is the difference between basic service and safely managed drinking water. Basic service is the presence of an improved, not necessarily safe, but improved source of drinking water within a round-trip collection time of 30 minutes. By that very, very basic definition, 9% of the world's population doesn't have even basic access to water. But that's a bit of an outdated definition. It was somewhat the target of the Millennium Development Goals that ended in 2015, so I find it a bit curious to refer to that in 2025. Again, I'm not blaming anybody here, I just want to give some more context, because actually, last year, Esther Greenwood from the EAVAG in Switzerland published a paper in Science using a new method to estimate the number of people lacking access to safely managed drinking water services in the world, and she came to the striking conclusion that actually 4.4 billion people in the world were deprived of that access. There's a scientific discussion I won't go into here today to discuss the differences in methodologies between the 2.1 billion and the 4.4 billion estimates, but that means that the bar is somewhere between 3 and 5 out of 10 people in the world that have a safe water access challenge. And still, that's all on the drinking water side, because meanwhile, 42% of humanity still doesn't have safely managed sanitation. So is the nearly 1 out of 10 statement wrong? No. But is it the right measure with our knowledge today? No. At least it's not the one I would have featured here. And my third critique is maybe a strong word, but objection is the coverage and the solution offered to the Mississippi Challenge. As the video recalls,
in 2022, flooding caused Jackson, Mississippi's entire water system to fail.
And that's a story I've covered here with interviews of several mayors of the Mississippi River Cities and Town Initiative, and the challenge that they have is a storm water/infrastructure issue. And if anyone doubts climate change, it's a great place to get a first-hand experience of what changing rain patterns actually mean. But stormwater and infrastructure issues are hard to tackle through a philanthropic move, even though I've discussed also on that microphone how some financing models could help here. So I understand why TeamWater takes the shortcut here to solve this with atmospheric water generation, but that's an expensive band-aid, honestly.
To solve this issue, we have a machine that pulls water out of the air?
That's right, an atmospheric water generator. This machine cools down the air and then it can't hold that water anymore, at which point you collect it in this big tank. Plus, it purifies it all in the process. It's basically just squeezing and wringing out air.
Cheers. Wow, science is amazing.
Atmospheric water generation costs about 1,000 times more per liter than tap water and is most of the time even more expensive than branded bottled water, so it's a strange use of philanthropic money, even if it's sadly a common one. This is the typical trap I alluded to a minute ago, which TeamWater avoided for 95% of the cases but still fell into here. It's a shiny object symptom. For a donor, this is gold. Your money is literally creating water out of thin air. But when it comes to the efficiency of your dollar, yeah, it's doubtful at best. What's surprising to me is that atmospheric water generation is usually the thing philanthropies use when they are in the middle of nowhere. It's still more expensive than trucking water, but it somewhat makes sense. Here, we're visibly in town, and a distributed water production container would produce much more water for a fraction of the cost. Or even better, a water reuse loop would make good use of the elder home sewage and grey water. Curious, honestly, when Mark Rober is in that shot, and he did a video with Mr. Beast about exactly this, published at the exact same time. So yeah, atmospheric water generation information is cool stuff for a $1 versus $1 million water video for MrBeast's channel. Not really appropriate here, I fear. And I'll brush over that bold statement that
This machine generates enough water for the entire assisted living facility. And they're going to be giving it to other people in the community who also struggle to get clean water.
TeamWater.
That's simply physically impossible unless that big building hosts maybe 4 people and the neighborhood is one guy and his dog. But I'm nitpicking here, and it doesn't really matter. Simply put, I would have partnered here with the MRCTI and done an infrastructure play, like what they absolutely perfectly did with Dig Deep in West Virginia, but as a certain US president often says, I guess it's good television. Now that my rants are over, there are still 4 game changers nobody's talking about, starting with first, debunking the government of the hook critique. Because I had a look and I collected some of the critics from around the web. One that I found quite frequently is that philanthropy should tackle root causes like governance or climate change, not just band-aids like digging wells. How about no? Tackling root causes sounds like something governments should do, honestly. And I don't see why philanthropy could not provide direct solutions. That sounds very nonsensical to me, sorry. And I feel like some people watched Jimmy's videos 2 years ago and didn't bother looking what TeamWater is all about. Because I understand that there can be influencer fatigue. But if Gordon Ramsay or the Stokes twins in a blue t-shirt enable water access, what's not to love about it? The next critique I read a lot is that those influencers stepping in place the governments of the hook. But tell me again, when were those governments on the hook exactly? I mean, the words pledge to universal water access dates back to the Mar del Plata conference in 1977. It was supposed to be a done thing in the 80s, and guess what? This was so inefficient that we needed the water action decade in the 90s. And that one, in turn, was so marvelously useful that we got the Millennium Development Goals in 2000, and while 1.8 billion did not have access to safe drinking water when those kicked in, a not so different 1.8 billion people still didn't have access to safe drinking water in 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals succeeded the Millennium Development ones. And now, well, we heard a lot of noise during the UN Water Conference 2.5 years ago, but we're probably on track to start having a plan by 2030 that may or may not guarantee safe drinking water for all by 2050. So let me ask again, when were the governments on the hook exactly? When were they held accountable for the 2 billion people deprived of their human right to safe and affordable water? Never. Never is the answer. But beyond the critiques, there's a second thing nobody talks about, is that NGOs are outperforming governments. Last year, a dream for me came true when I interviewed Gary White, the co-founder of Water.org. Water.org has helped and empowered 81 million people worldwide with access to safe water or sanitation. Water.org is an NGO, not a government, yet it has been more efficient in that endeavor than any government in the world. So the shame should be on the government for their lack of action, not on the NGOs and philanthropies that supposedly get them off the hook. Third thing, and this is big, this is the world's largest water engineering classroom. Because the third critique I want to address here is a semi-paternalist one. One that sounds positive, but really isn't. People who say, oh, it's good that young people get entertained into the topic because they're not reading UN reports and maybe they will one day. I guess you have to be smoking pipe while you say that. Well, trust me, I've read too much of those UN reports. Those reports are great, but they're written for the people that read and write those reports, me included. It's a closed loop, and it's a meeting of the club. TeamWater's influencers, a bit like MrBeast's solo videos of 2 years ago, have drawn hundreds of millions of people into the topic because they were entertained. Yes, sure, but not only. Let me take an example. This is my TED Talk. It speaks about why we should reuse water, and I'm very proud of it. The audience in the room liked it, and I still get occasional nice words dropping in my inbox. It got 650 views, and I cherish each and every of those. Now, this is Mark Roberts' video on MrBeast drinking his pee. MrBeast drinking the reused water out of his pee is actually maybe 2% of the video. The other 98% of the video are a clever crash course into the informal economy of drinking water when infrastructure doesn't exist, into the engineering mechanism that enable water reuse, and into the psychological and sociological stigma which comes with reusing water even when you know it's safe. And it got 11 million views. And God, do I cherish each and every of those even more than the ones under my TED Talk, because for the world to close the water gap, which ultimately should be the goal no matter what or how, we need water reuse to quadruple by the end of this decade. And as much as the call to arms from a Global Water Intelligence or a World Bank matter, there's simply no match to 11 million people, including my daughters, finally getting how safe, cool and off-the-shelf ready water reuse is. So no, forget the paternalist pat in the back. I hope those 11 million people never have to read a UN report. I may hope they will elect people that will read those reports, but the awareness raise we're seeing here is simply out of this world. Number 4, creating real understanding, not just awareness. Because if I take a step back, sure, you won't get an engineering degree just by looking at Mark Rober or Mr. Beast video combined. But tens of millions of people have seen how a microfiltration, an ultrafiltration, a reverse osmosis, a UV disinfection, a water network, and even, for the best and the worst, an atmospheric water generation work. They received a crash course in the informal economy of water. People without access to safe drinking water don't drink sand. They still get that drinking water one way or the other, but often they get it at a much higher price than we do in developed countries. As Gary White and Matt Damon put it in their book, it's expensive to be poor. So what now? Well, TeamWater store is still open, so if you missed it, you can still contribute, even though the 40 million objective was met. But as Mark and Jimmy highlighted, beyond their efforts, there's a bigger picture. And we should ensure we make progress towards safe water for all, not just over a month, but over years and decades, and as one humanity. If that's of interest, have a look here to see how another NGO, 1001 Fountains, is tackling that challenge in an innovative fashion through social entrepreneurship and distributed bottles of water. And if you have more questions, let's take them in the comments. I read them all, and I'll see you next time.